Um, 9:59, but we will start early. We will open our workshop with a update from the Public Works Director, Gordy Kelsey.
Good morning. We have one item on your consent agenda, and that's the contract bond between Klickitat County and Frank Gurney Construction, and that's for the guardrail repair project. We also have a payment approval for James Dean Construction in the amount of $927,379.20, and that's for the Courtney Road project that's ongoing. On the construction side, our signs and guidepost project, they have punch list items, and we're waiting for materials. The signs are one of those things that are delayed these days. We waited for signs on West Darland for several months, and so I think that's kind of the trend for these as well. I know we have ongoing problems and issues trying to get signs just for maintenance. Roosevelt grade paving, just working through the punch list items, and with the pavement, out-of-spec pavement issue as well. So that one will have a life of its own.
How do they, if I may, how do you, I mean, I know they do cores is how they did the bottom part, where sort of visual evidence of an issue. But how do we, I mean, sometimes it's not obvious. And, you know, I am assuming we're not gonna just core the whole project.
We did, but at pretty
spaced out intervals to try to narrow down where the, and I'm assuming I mean, they know what the mix was when they were mixing it, and which, because that wasn't all done on a single day.
No, you take samples as you're you take samples as you're doing it. They pull it right out of the plant, and then they actually what they call cook it. So they separate it with heat. And then they can tell what the makeup is of the asphalt. And if that passes, and it did in this instance during the whole time, then you typically don't core. I mean, you could during the job, but it cost us more money.
Right.
But when we saw that the pavement was bad, then we went back and cored.
Right, but the stuff that obviously was bad passed its cook test when it was mixed. But so what's the likely, I mean, is it possible that there's other that passed its test that
area probably didn't get, because you only test every 2,000 ton.
Oh.
So, you know, that's like, I think 1,200 ton. So, and it was at the end of the day, which is always suspect. You know, you worked in, you know, everybody at the end, we want to get done.
Everything's good. It's great. Let's wrap up.
Yeah, or
okay.
Yeah, you're building.
No, I just want to be sure, you know, are we going to be able to narrow down where they got to fix what really needs fixed and make good on it versus are we going to have some potential liability out there, you know, 3 years from now when the rest of the road falls apart? Can we go back on it?
Yeah, so what we're in the process of doing, we've narrowed it down to that first section between Highway 14 and the cutoff for the company, Republic's Road. And so that's where we're doing a lot more testing this week. So we have 2 days of testing and coring in that section alone. And then those cores will be sent to a forensic lab where they'll determine what the lost life of that stretch of pavement is. And that'll help us determine what has to happen.
Will the asphalt company cover the cost of the coring and testing if they're liable, if it's their mistake?
Might be more of a David call than,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, in my world, they should be.
Yes.
I mean, if I was, you know, being a general contractor, if it was
Depends on what was in the contract.
Yeah, whether it was in the, I mean, I know these are big companies and they're not, but usually for me, if it was my mistake, then I'm own it. And I should fix it, and I should make it as if it never happened, which means I would cover the cost. But
yeah, it's and that is significant cost. It is.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about, oh, we're going to be coring for 2 days, it's like I'm hearing dollar signs.
Yes,
Yes, it's expensive.
yeah,
So, okay, well. sounds
But
like
it's
you got-
only mainly between 14 and the
Yes.
cutoff.
yeah.
At least that's a short section.
Yeah, but it's still, we were thick, and so at today's hot mix prices, it's expensive.
Yes.
It's a lot of
very
money.
expensive.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Courtney Road, things have dried out and they look like it'll continue to dry out. And so they're able to get back out there and hit it hard with the Mass X and embankment construction. So that's what they're working on this week, and they will be for quite a while. Klickitat Path, we have to go out for that concrete sub, and then our plan is to pave it sometime toward the middle to end of August and wrap that project up. So it should be after Canyon Days. That's probably where we're looking for a time frame. Courthouse parking lots, we plan to advertise that next week. We're doing our final reviews and getting our plans together this week, and it will be on your agenda to advertise next week. Small Works Guardrail Project, the bond is on your agenda today for signature for Frank Gurney. And on the maintenance side, we're patching, doing some mowing and grading, and that's pretty much both sides of the county or all over the county. And then we also are taking down a large tree on Rio Vista in White Salmon. And that'll happen, I think tomorrow is the scheduled date for that. Let's see, we have facility side, the building. Landscaper needs to return for some minor adjustments to their systems. And then what they thought they repaired on the small island that somebody ran into and damaged the tree and the sprinkler system. Either they didn't check their system when they made the repair, or the damage is maybe somewhere farther underneath some of our concrete, which would be really a bummer. So we'll see what happens.
Is it leaking water or something?
Yeah, so when they turned it on again, we turned the system back on. It's basically filling up that island with water instead of working like it's supposed to
Okay.
with the drip system. So we'll see. Hopefully they just didn't check their repair and there was something else leaking. That's our hope. We still have the blind down in the Mount Adams room down below this one that needs to be finished and repaired. And I think we're struggling to get the blind contractor back. Our prime contractor is. We came up with a fix for the remaining locations for HVAC. In the entrance to health, there was actually a change that we can't find documentation for. So the intake for providing hot or cold air comes right off the main manifold. So there's no, with the flex ducting, that provides kind of a dampening effect and gets rid of a lot of the sound. And so they said this is why we're getting all the sound in there. So they'll have to, and that, of course, as a hard lid like it does in here. So in order to fix it, they're going to have to remove some of the hard lid and repair it at some point. So that's the solution there. And then up in building planning in their main large open area, the motor for the fan is too close to the air intake that's up there. So the only solution to that one is put some kind of a dampener inside that big open ductwork. And then there's one office in my area that has significant vibration and sound, and it's basically the exhaust fan for the whole building sits right above that office and probably should not have been there.
Is that up on the
Yep,
roof?
up on the roof, yeah. And when you go up on the roof, it's the loudest piece of equipment up there. And so when you turn it off, it gets really quiet in that office. So there's some work on that. And so we'll get there, but there's a solution, I think, and we'll wait to see what the contractor says, because some of it might be them. Some of it might be, design wasn't adequate enough, or wasn't constructed the way it was supposed to. So we'll sort through that. But we do have a path forward, so that's good. The office for HR and weed that we've been working on for a long time is ready for Elizabeth to move in. So she's just waiting for IT to move her equipment over, and then she'll move over. And that should be done. The HVAC replacement for the Pioneer Center, all the equipment actually showed up ahead of schedule. It wasn't supposed to be here until September, which is when the contractor had the work scheduled. They are booked until then, but we now have the equipment. So we've asked that they keep us in mind if their schedule opens up and they're able to come in, because we're still using the portable units in seniors, this summer until they get that new unit installed. So basically a year. So if we have a unit go down in a commercial unit, it's a year out in some of these cases, 9 months to a year. So
you got to get them fixed before they go down.
Yeah, this is really bad time for most things.
Yeah.
So the radio site,
we're going to start work on the road next Monday.
Let's see, follow-up issues. So looking for storage room in the courthouse for Superior Court, who currently has none. And their chairs, tables, TVs on stands, and other items are all just in lots of different places, mostly the jury room. And so the judge and Mary Jo have asked that we find them a place to put this stuff. And so some of it's stored in the basement currently, just out. Some chairs that they move in there when they need them. And so we looked at one area that you guys gave up, and that's not feasible or possible. And so we looked at where else could we build something in the basement, and most of the rest of the open area is filled with pipes, and they aren't like their old boiler pipes. They're actually the sewer pipes that we do use, so you can't do anything with that. So it's really not possible more than what we store there now. So the other area that we thought of was the old vault where HR was. We were going to have a small conference room in there, but it probably makes more sense to just utilize that for the storage. And then we can just move those things up and down the elevator for Superior Court as needed. So, and we'll still have the big conference room in there, and then the break room. But so if that makes sense, that's what we'll do.
That makes sense. If they need more conference rooms, they can come over here.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Yep. So.
But it's always going to be a little weird having the conference room in the vault.
Yeah.
Left the door on though.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It'll make a better storage room.
Yeah.
I'm going to step out for a minute. Just a minute. Yeah. Oh. All right. From the airplane.
Oh.
I just had one question. How far behind is James?
You broke up. We got how far behind, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
James Dean. James Dean, how far behind are they going to be on their Mass X and are they looking to get any construction completed this year?
Yeah, they're going to get it. I'll follow up next week. I think if they can get through this week and the next week, the weather gives them a break, they should be back on schedule.
Sounded like it. Oh, it was on there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, dedication plaque. So do we have a new location for that, or do we want to just mount it in the mailbox area or somewhere else?
I don't even remember what we decided. It was so long ago.
We were going to see if you got input back from anybody else that might have had thoughts on, citizens that might have had thoughts on it.
If I'm remembering correctly, the answer was not outside, it was inside by the TV, but I don't know that with the TV there, it might look weird over there on that wall, so I don't know, wherever you want to put it.
Wherever it's practical.
Put it in Dave's office.
Should be.
Anything but outside.
Anywhere but outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like outside better, but I guess with vandalism and wear and tear and tarnish, it makes sense not to be, so.
Okay. We'll look for a location by the TV. If it doesn't work, then we still have that other location too. So we'll get it installed. And let's see, so I wasn't around, but Ken Marvel came by and had mentioned that you had expressed an interest in adding some old historic photos at different locations in this building. So I don't know if there were thoughts on where or how many or what you were thinking.
Oh, that's kind of the question we find ourselves in. So I met with the Historical Society to essentially get their permission to use some of their old photos, because I've had the conversation with my seatmates about putting some old photos in the building. We haven't decided on how many or where or what. But conversations with the Historical Society are very slow in coming. I think his name's Joanne at the photo company. Is that her name?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I talked with her about doing the prints, and she has most of the photos because she's worked with the Historical Society before. So it's kind of I've asked again, and I sent an email 2 or 3 weeks ago to the Historical Society, haven't heard back. Sent one again 5 days ago, haven't heard back. That's either do you want involved in the project, or do you want to just give us permission and then she can run with the project? And it's kind of crickets. So the thought with my seatmates was Mr. Anderson wanted to do the conference rooms with artwork of the mountain that they represent. Not necessarily historical. But then doing some of the hallway stuff in old pictures. And I figured we would get a group together when approval got approved to walk through and see how many or where or what, and then get a quote from her to print and whatnot. But again, I'm still waiting on permission from the Historical Society.
They brought some photos over, so I'm assuming they're on board. Kim did.
Did they drop a CD?
No, he brought a couple of old ones of Goldendale and then one of over in the Trout Lake area that kind of shows Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, and Adams, kind of all in one photo, but it's taken from Skamania County.
Okay.
But yeah,
That's okay.
yeah.
So yeah, I figured, when it came time to be dealing with that, I don't know if we want to, split the floors by district or by theme or what have you. But, if they're on board, like I said, she's got CD drive of all the old photos, and we can, kind of go through a snapshot on the computer to figure out which ones we actually want in here.
Sure.
And then my other thinking was, unlike these that are framed in glass, I'm kind of worried about somebody bumping them in the hallway, or some little kid bumping them in the hallway and then the thing falling off the wall. And you also have the weight, and you also have the cost of framing. So to do one of these, they're about $250 a pop. If you just did wraparound canvas print on, they're only about $120 a pop.
Yeah.
And then if somebody knocks it off on the ground, you didn't destroy the building either. So
I think Jeannie said they'd be much cheaper on canvas.
okay, yeah. So that's the deal. If they're in, I'm be happy to go over and talk to her, and she's all game to walk through, and I'll just set up a time when, I don't know if you want to be in on that, or you want to designate somebody to be in on that, or.
Yeah, so we know what the thought is, and because we'll probably be the ones putting them up. So
Right.
Yeah.
Then if you could identify too, because there may be some areas that are not suitable. That
Right.
They might, for logistical reasons,
Right,
or safety or
Right.
something. It's like, oh no, you can't put that.
I don't want it to turn into a giant art gallery by any means, but I, you know, make it a little more lived in, a little more homey.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll talk to her and then I'll set something up with you and at least get a idea to present to the full.
Yeah, Ken stops by, but I'd like to get his phone number so we can actually I can be here at the same time and maybe we can get that disc or the thumb drive or whatever they
Hey,
have.
She's got the thumb drive of all the stuff, and it's just like I told her, I'm like, but I want their permission first. I don't want to use a photo that's theirs without their permission, but I made a presentation to that board, and there's, I don't know, 8 of them in there, and, you know, 6, 7 of them were excited about the idea,
Mhm.
as long as it wasn't gonna cost them anything. But it's moving very slow, so maybe you have better connections to speed it up a little bit.
We'll just keep after it. Yeah. Okay, that's it for our list. Unless you were dreaming
No,
up some
no.
stuff while you were home.
No dreaming.
I do have one, came up on a Facebook thread, which you may or may not have seen about this building. Complaints from business owners on Main Street that claim employees are parking on Main Street to come to work in this building. And it's taking up parking from them in front of their businesses. They're claiming that they've had conversations with said employees and pretty much just get told off. I don't know the accuracy of said claims. Seems a reach to me, but if we could send an all-staff email, and I don't know whether you want to do it or come from the board, have a little more weight behind it, that tells county staff that they are not allowed to park
Sure.
on Main Street, and then go from there.
Yeah, maybe we can draft something up and send it to Lee.
Clarification to make sure it's not supposed to park on the Main Street.
Over a block over, yeah.
Yeah, like by in front of the pharmacy, that type of thing.
I can't, I mean, I'm not doubting the veracity of the person, but that seems,
It seems odd, but
It
then
seems
again,
odd.
When we said no parking in the courthouse parking lot, I noticed the same couple of employees continuing to park in the courthouse parking lot and walk across the street over here, so. It's possible, let's just send a reminder, and then I've told those
Ike.
businesses that if they,
I mean, it's not.
but if they, I told those businesses if they find somebody
Yeah.
over there to let me know directly, and then I'll let you know directly on the day it's happening, and we'll find the perpetrators.
Yeah, when we had less parking before the courthouse lot was finished, I've actually seen that occur.
Yes.
But I haven't seen it since. I mean, now that we have more parking out in front and I haven't seen.
I mean,
it
there
or
was a
noticed
couple
it.
days during all of that, you know, when there was court was going, where it was hard to
Yeah.
find a place to park anywhere.
As I said, I never
That's
said anything about it
alleviated
because it
now.
was small fraction. It was happened irregularly.
Yeah.
But if there is parking on Main Street, we need to fix that.
Of course, I know there never were any Main Street business employees that parked in the county.
Well,
lot.
that's the
Yeah.
main complaint. That's the main complaint, is that they used to park their cars in that and open up Main Street. And now that that parking isn't there, they're upset that they don't have someplace to park. So what happens is, I think, my opinion, I think they don't park in front of their business, they park in front of their neighbor's business. And then that pisses their neighbor off, so their neighbor parks in front of their business, and none of them want to actually park over here. So we'll see when the parking gets fixed, and if the city needs to buy a few lots over there to give them more Main Street parking, that's up to the city, but as long as we keep our employees off of Main Street. Yes, sir.
We don't really have any authority to do that in their private vehicles. It's
We
public
can
parking.
suggest.
Suggest, recommend, but I mean, there's no potential discipline that I'm aware of that would apply to somebody parking in a public place.
Yeah.
Our suggestions.
Strongly suggest.
I understand that. I'm just-
Yeah, I think once we get the other lot done, You know, should be adequate parking, but, you know, the city's goal for this area is no parking. Nobody has to build parking because it's the downtown business core. And right or wrong, that's the zoning requirement here.
Right.
So, but we've provided a lot of parking.
We have, and we will, and it will be more. The problem is it's all on this side of Main Street.
Yeah,
And I think you have people that don't want to walk a block. So I can't control that, but if I can strongly encourage our employees to stop getting me yelled at, that would be great.
all right.
Other than that, I have nothing. Anything else, sir?
Yep.
Perfect. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Make sure he's got some really fun work to do today on his first day back.
Yeah, I've been working the whole time. Oh, yeah. Still can't operate it back. I'm working on it. Learn.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, sir.
Casey will join me in the executive session. Jen doesn't have an update today. She's preparing for the quarterly report that'll be scheduled on a Tuesday in July, yet to be determined. So today is Jeff from IT, and a couple things we wanted to talk to you about. The one on the agenda is staffing. We're pondering out loud with the commissioners to see if potentially there's some interest. We have a box on our org chart for help desk 1 and 2 in the same box. And then we have an IT administrator, and we're authorized for 2 FTE. We are unable to fill the system administrator to date.
That's the one that became vacant a
Right.
month or two ago. Okay.
So what we're thinking of, Jeff has got some strong applicants for a help desk. And so we're kind of kicking around the idea of asking permission, not today, to add the IT help desk 1 and 2 to the administrator box, basically grow our own, have somebody come in who could be the help desk person, and then over course of time, move into the administrator position. Right now, I mean, we could promote from the help desk over to the IT side, but you know, other departments have kind of looked into kind of growing their own, so to speak, bringing them in at a lower level, and then with time and experience moving into the administrator job. So we can't currently do that the way our org chart is set up. So because we already have the IT help desk position filled, that box is filled with 1 FTE.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah, it's already filled, so.
Because you could do that if the
then-
box was open, you
but
could do
there's a
that and
jump.
then move them.
So you have IT help desk and then you have this. Do you shoot them all the way there at once or do you build them into it? I think
So
that's the
we're
question.
kicking that around and just want to get some feedback whether you thought that was something that you'd be willing to listen to, if it makes sense to make that.
Is there a way to, I guess I would say stagger the wage level from, I mean, it's gonna jump from one to the other. It's a pretty big jump. Is there any steps in there to get?
Well, I think the help desk 1 and 2 positions are less than the system administrator, and that may be a logical stagger built in already. It would just be adding that other position to the, not changing the number of FTE, not changing the budget. Actually, potentially could be a lower budget for a while, but just having a lower level. We've talked about in other departments, a training level and entry level, and giving them time to work into the minimum requirements of the higher job. So.
And that would allow you to have a second IT help desk over here, training, so when movement, I get it, makes sense.
Yeah, this gives us more flexibility. So we just ask you to kind of ponder it, and then we're going to keep kicking around, and we may come back asking for verbal or at least present the concept to you again more formally to see if that's something that you'd be willing to consider. But as yet, we're unable, even at the higher wage that you approved for the system administrator, we're yet to get qualified applicants.
Or any.
We have to train from within everything.
Yeah, or
so
any,
it makes
yeah.
sense.
Again, not asking you today, just kind of running the concept by you ahead of time. A couple of things that Jeff and I wanted to talk to you about and answer any questions. So There were two things when we built the budget that were unknowns that we knew were going to occur this year. One was the copiers, and we've dealt with that. The other one is the renewal for the G Suite, the Google Suite license. Nothing goes down, everything goes up. It's not up till November, but we're having trouble getting numbers from them. November would be too late for a supplemental, so we're pushing them pretty hard to try and get us the information sooner than later. But in addition to the G Suite software, there's archive software that.
Well, it's part of G Suite actually, but G Suite continues to, every time we lose an employee or an employee switches departments, we have to archive their data. And it's about half the cost of a normal license, but it's adding up. So that's gonna kind of have a huge effect on our
Is that
licensing this year.
forever?
Until somebody gives us some kind of direction on,
Retention?
Yeah.
and-
but either way, we haven't had G Suite for 7 years yet. So if we were to remove the archives after the maximum retention period of 7 years, we'd still have a ton of archive licenses.
Even employees in-house who move from department to department, especially CGIS departments, we have to maintain that separate. So one employee could have 5 different accounts.
Why is that? Why do you have to switch email accounts when they move from department to department?
Because the data belongs to the department. So anything that they created inside of that department belongs to that department. If they needed emails forwarded from that person so they continue receiving critical information, they have to have that as well. Not all departments do. Some allow the person to take the email, but some don't.
Some employees are good about it. They get an email from their previous job forwarding it. But if it's a critical time-sensitive email or a public records request or something, then most departments or offices don't want to risk having it. That's why when folks leave, it's generally assigned to somebody in that department so that there's somebody monitoring those emails on a daily basis. So sometimes they keep their old email if the two departments agree and
Yeah.
there's no issues like a CGIS
Sensitive data or
sensitive
anything like
data
that.
issue. So
I don't see a way to get out of the increased expense.
I think the only way would be having some kind of retention policy for email, but it would be, yeah, less turnover.
We need to have a retention policy for emails, but
the other issues on base, as you may recall, you authorized the clerk to, I think, expend $10,000 or $11,000 on base. The bill came in at $16,000, not because of any work the clerk has done. I want to be clear about that. It is the work that we're doing to make on base available to other departments, as we've discussed with the commissioners over the last year. There's quite a bit of interest in some departments about using on base, such as adult probation, juvenile. I think
Right now, Public Works is what we're working on.
So we're going to try and absorb that in our current budget. We're not sure if we can, but we're going to try. And then next year, that cost will build in our new budget. So any organization-wide cost, we'll try and build in the budget next year. So again, nothing the clerk has done, just additional work for us to prepare it or for it to be usable by other departments. Just want to give you a heads up on that. Speaking of supplementals, you may recall that last year you approved a supplemental to help us with the installation and implementation of the new phone lines that did away with long distance charges and phone line charges. We didn't get the implementation done until January, February, so we couldn't use obviously the money that was in the supplemental. So we're about 15,000 in the hole for the implementation. So we're monitoring our budget, but more likely that will be in the supplemental this year to cover that. It was approved last year, but of course, money just rolled back into the general fund bucket, but that cost is still there. Anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
Any questions?
If I may, can we go back to the G Suite that we don't know until November? What kind of dollars are we talking? I mean, I know
Well, typically the last
wide, it's got to be a pretty big number.
The last 3 years, we've had like a 50% discount, but that that agreement ends this year, so we don't know the exact number. If we pay full price, it'd be like 90,000. But the last 3 years, it's been around 50,000.
But we potentially though are looking at a $40,000 increase.
Likely we'll be able to negotiate another discount, but worst case
case.
scenario, yeah.
Just preparing.
Yeah. You
I
asked
see-
the
I
question
see-
that I was gonna ask, so.
I see Jen stiffening back there, so. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions for IT? All
November.
No.
right, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks you.
Couple other things, civil service. So we've had a employee now, former employee, who's acted as our civil service secretary for at least 10 years that we know of, if not longer. And the pay for that position, she was a full-time employee in another department. Now she has another full-time job, but she's still doing the civil service. The pay for civil service is $150 a month. Then I think $150 per test for the sheriff or corrections or deputies. She's doing a study going back as a number of years to see how many hours it takes in a given year, but we haven't raised that for at least a decade. 8 of the 11 comparator counties got back to me, and everybody does it differently. We by far are the lowest. Asotin County pays twice what we pay. Some counties, it's in HR. 2 counties, it's in HR. 2, it's in the commissioner's office. 1 is in the sheriff's office. 1 is the contract employee. 1, it's in the PA's office. So everybody deals with it a little bit differently, but we're required to have it. It's definitely not a full-time job, but it's clearly more than $150 a month. So we're just letting you know we're looking into it to see what it could be, what it should be, but based on the number of hours in a given year. As the sheriff's department is seeing more turnover, then the civil service function also incurs more hours and more expense to give tests. A lot of it's Saturday work. The tests are usually given on the weekends, where it's more convenient for public to take the test. So it's something we're looking into that hasn't been looked into for a very long time.
So how do we run that through payroll? I mean, is it like a stipend? Is it it's $150 a month. What?
Yeah, and she turns it in. I'm still trying to figure that out, talking to Melanie. She submits it to the auditor's office, and I think it's like a 1099. I think it's not, she's not on the payroll. Some counties do it that
So
way.
it's like a contract.
Yeah.
I thought about a casual employee, but as Casey mentioned, so many hours, then there'll be DRS, and then the benefits will kick in, and it potentially can make it a pretty expensive position. So just trying to look at how other counties are doing it. We have to do it. There's no question about that. But how we do it, clearly all the other counties are doing it differently. So we just need to figure out what works best for us. Melanie is still willing to do it, but with a full-time job, no longer working here, it's more inconvenience than it is worth the pay to her. So anyway, just letting you know, we're kind of looking into that. And I did talk to the board chair about it before I left, that we're looking into it as well. So I know Jake knows about it. Solid Waste Department update. Most of this you probably know. I have a meeting today with Wendy from HDR to work on a proposed contract to be presented to the commissioners for consideration, to do some level of study about the solid waste department, to give us direction for the future. Michelle met this morning with adult probation on passing the litter grant over to that department. Michelle has set Lynn and I up in the state system to manage the other 2 grants. So Lynn is 20%, 25% of her time is dedicated to solid waste. So we'll be working on those other 2 grants. With the possible timeline of a possible contract consultant and the normal hiring and recruiting, even if we move fairly quickly and you decided to restaff some or all of the department, I think we're at least 90 to 120 days out of any changes. I know Michelle's putting together a forward-looking calendar for at least the next 90 days. So we know what's out there to be done and needs to be done. But I think we're probably well into the budget cycle before we have enough information to present to you for a possible next steps.
That's kind of my concern is what, cleanup events are gonna need to be canceled or postponed or what, fair booth, how we gonna, do we need to shut all that down this year?
I think, but I don't know, I
Um,
think she mentioned, and if I'm wrong, I'll get back to you, that she hadn't committed to a fair booth yet, so, so that hadn't been, so it wouldn't be something we'd have to.
That's my biggest concern is how many people we gonna leave hanging, last minute that we didn't even know about.
I know Michelle's working very hard with some of those, like the city of Goldendale, to make sure that everybody's aware of what's going on and we don't drop the ball on anything. So I appreciate her efforts to help us do that.
So has she given us a list of everything that she had planned that won't be happening now?
Working on that now. Yes. And that's it for the regular session, unless you have any questions.
I have a fiscal question that might get a brick thrown at me. So I'm kind of hesitant to state it.
Just stretch this morning, so you're ready.
Would it be wise
No, never.
to
The answer is always no.
have our financial guru look into landfill numbers for the past, whatever, 5 or 6 years to make sure the math is the correct math and they didn't miss some interest or CPI adjustment or something going back in the last few years? So meaning all future numbers might be crooked?
If I may interject, I think Glenn kept pretty close eye on that. So we were just back at the tired.
Bad idea, right? It would be a good idea. I think prior to that, yeah, I would agree. Because there were mistakes caught and corrections made in those prior to that. So I know,
As I said, if there's. a
but from that
correction we
point
missed,
forward,
whatever and that's, you would have more knowledge on that one, on whether it needs to go 2 years or 4 years or when that last correction was found. I don't know how deep this dive would be, but
So that's what we want to make sure we're on the same page. So you're talking about the quarterly payments, you're talking about exactly what it is you want to go back and look at specifically.
I think it would be, yeah, the quarterly payments and the formula that they use to calculate, and then maybe some thoughts about how we even audit that. Because going forward, because that's, it's obviously a topic of great interest to us. And they, I think we do need some way to be able to trust but verify the number, because they kind of provide us with a number and and the calculations. And we need to figure out some fairly simple way, I think, to just kind of ground truth that, our own way to verify. Not that I think there's anything there, but there have been mistakes made in the past where they're the CPIs were wrong. They didn't, especially the formula's pretty complicated. It can be.
Appears to be. And it appears to be a large, complicated spreadsheet, and
Right.
that potentially just a clerical person might be.
Yeah, it would be
Inputting some numbers in.
wrong, and then they, because we have had that before where it, it wasn't huge, I think, the last correction, but it was, it was like $50,000 or $60,000. Yeah, well, that's a lot of money to make a mistake, especially if it accumulates over time where it doesn't get factored into the new formula as a addition, then it exponentially just keeps on growing. And so I think that's.
was the mistakes that they made in the past on calculating the quarterlies, or was it they forgot to add a 0 to a certain county's quarterly tonnage?
No, it wasn't, as I recall, it wasn't the tonnage, it was CPI, and then it was the, because it's in the contract how that gets applied and when it gets applied. And there was either, I assume it didn't get applied at the correct time. And then there's the complexity around pulling out the Snohomish County tonnage that has a different rate compared to the other ones, and how that gets applied to that too. And so it ended up, they just miscalculated it, and it was.
The last one was a miscalculation of a CPI that they had tried to make an adjustment that just wasn't accurate.
Yeah.
I think Janet's referenced it, but if you look at the spreadsheet, it can be just simple formula errors. I think Glenn would do spot checks on formulas, and the addition, that much information in a spreadsheet there can just be simple errors in there that.
Absolutely.
That's
You
all
know,
I want to
and I don't-
verify. It's now under my watch. So if we have not been doing that, I want to make sure we've at least done it once. We may not have quarterlies going forward forever, who knows? But until then, I would like to make sure we double check them.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe he's thinking of some thoughts on and again, I don't even know how we would do it, but their tonnage numbers, we just take what they give us.
Right.
And I've often been curious that the auditors don't call that out, because we don't really have any way, I don't know what it would be an effective way to actually check that. They have very good numbers as far as, I'm assuming their numbers are really good because that's how they get paid.
Right.
And they give us those numbers. But
And I believe Ruby was getting tonnage reports.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if it would be verifying that. I'm not familiar with those reports, but I'd have to look at it.
I said, we wouldn't know if, Snohomish County was down 400 ton, but we'd know if they were down 40,000 ton
Yeah,
from the
because
previous quarter.
it'd be like,
I mean, you can, just comparing it to the last one, you can kind of get a trend, other than COVID.
And I don't know enough about the compliance officer's role yet to know that he would be in any position to, if that's even part of his responsibility to track the trains coming in. And I know he inspects containers for leakage and those kind of things, so I'm not sure if that's part
I would
of his.
imagine as the containers are rolling over the scale gets billed to Snohomish County or
Right.
whatever.
I just
that
think
way.
maybe it's sometimes which category that tonnage gets counted under. Lots of different categories, different types of waste.
right. Again, I have every reason to believe their numbers are accurate because that's how they bill their customers.
Unless it's just a typo on our
Right.
graph and there's missing a zero,
Right.
and that's kind of what I'm saying, but we kind of can see those as we get the tonnage.
Yeah, we can
reports.
only see it at a macro level where we would notice, oh, yeah, why, what happened? Because we do get those quarterlies from them where we get the tonnage reports and they track the, what's going on, here's the historic, you can kind of see what's going on. And then, and depending on what happens with the economy, we may be paying closer attention than we have been for the
Well,
last.
and I know
couple.
there's potential discussions going on with the Republic. Might be good for them to educate some of us who don't know how they track the tonnage and what's the process. Is it all bar-coded containers and trains? And
Yeah, my understanding, I mean, what I've observed in my, I guess, anecdotal knowledge is they track, there's a barcode on every single container. They know when it appears at the scale. I mean, they track it through the whole system. They can tell you where that waste is at any given moment. And then when it gets to Roosevelt, when it rolls over the scale, they scan it. They know, oh, that got put on, they pulls up the report, that got put on the train, that came from Snohomish County. It took, a day and a half to get here. This is what it weighs. It goes up when it comes back out, it gets scanned on the way out. So they calculate the tonnage, the difference between, and then that gets billed to Snohomish for, that's, with so many tons, this is per their contract. And so they have every reason to have accurate numbers for that because those are their numbers. So anything we would find might be to their benefit also. But it would just be nice sometime, just maybe that we had an understanding institutionally for us to be able to explain that and to be comfortable with it just in the future.
So my question would be is it is a very interesting formula. Could you read it and figure out the formula, or do you need a contact with Republic to walk you through their formula kind of scenario? Because I'm sure if we made a phone call, we could find the right person to you to have phone conversations or screen shares or whatever.
I think I would have to study the contract and then
Right.
compare it to the spreadsheet before I could answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my
Sure.
advice, is just
Yeah.
take I mean, because the formula is laid out in the contract, and then you could look at the spreadsheet as far as like, oh, I think this is what they're doing, and understand it, and then.
And I do think there were some discussions between Jen and the treasurer, because there's kind of overlap in, it is revenue. So I know Greg's been working with her in the past, so maybe they
Yeah,
could,
that would be another
Yeah.
good set of eyes on there.
Absolutely. We've been brainstorming.
because this is a function, as we ultimately recommend to you, and you determine what solid waste looks like going forward. This is a critical function we know needs to be done somewhere by someone. That's not going to go away. So it's going to help educators going forward. So
Thank you for not throwing.
I
a brick
told
at
you
me.
you'd ask him, because I'm not saying anything today. Here she is.
I tried.
Yeah, I tried. Oh, unless there's any questions, commissioners, I'm ready to go into executive session as per.
It's on my report.
Thank you.
Do you have anything
You were
else,
gonna,
Brian?
you were gonna say you're gonna make me suffer for a minute.
All right, we're gonna go into executive session with Human Resources. In accordance with RCW 42.30.110 paren I, paren G, to review the performance, discipline, and qualifications of a public employee. Issues of a general nature will be discussed in open session. We have different things, or?
Hey guys, would somebody give me a call on the main phone?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Is it the same RCW number, or do I gotta find a different?
It's all the same, it's just not
Different
G,
letter.
it's E, I don't know.
Is G? Oh, it's on this one? Oh. RCW 4230-144, parentheses 4 is what is on this.
Oh, so it's a different number.
It's a different.
Oh,
yes.
that's,
It's a closed session rather.
it's a
than-
closed session.
42.30.
Yeah.
.140, parentheses 4, subsection 4.
That's what you said. That's what I heard.
All right, 42.30.140 paren 4.
Thank you. Thank you, Ivy. Just when I think I got it, I don't.
Just to clarify, Commissioner Anderson, we're supposed to call in.
Yep.
In the meantime, as per.
Sorry, Zoom people, we will be, please log yourself off. We'll be closing down Zoom until after the executive session. There will not be any more communication. We'll just go straight to lunch after that, and we'll see you all back at 1 o'clock.